everyone's here and people coming on board. So let's get into our first OT expert panel of the day. So we are going to more than likely have a conversation that's focused on how manufacturers are strengthening cyber resilience in the face of fast evolving threats. This session brings together a panel of seasoned cybersecurity professionals from across different manufacturers, different sectors from across the region. So I'm hoping to hear about hard-won lessons, actionable steps, and how you gentlemen are aligning the risk, response, recovery, and efforts on the ground. I think that's what the audience would really like to hear. And as always, anybody, you can ask questions, just click on the Q&A button and we'll try and get to the questions as soon as we can, definitely before we wrap up. So Ravindra, why don't you kick things off and give a quick introduction to the audience, please?
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Thanks for having me here. So myself, Ravindra is Gotavade. I've been into this industry for 16 plus years now. And last 6 years, I've been seeing closely OT security down on the shop floor. So that's what my experience comes from. And I've tried to tailor across things that would work into OT security. So that's something that I'll be sharing in today's session also. Thanks for having me, Jonathan.
Perfect, thank you. Nrusingha, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I am Nrusingha. I have 16 years experience working in this OT manufacturing industry. So primarily, I began with OT design development, system design development, training people, and then slowly moved into security. So I am an expert in the PLC, SCADA, DCS, integration with IT, and now seeing from a security angle how they can be secured. So have spent a few years in it, probably about 4 years into purely security. So yeah, I would love to share about how security should be welcomed in what ways to the OT environment.
Perfect. And last but not least, Jatan.
Hi everyone, Jatan Pathak here. I have a combined experience of 6 years in IT and OT security. My major expertise lies in, I would say, bridging the gap between IT security and OT security with mixture of vulnerability management and threat intel. I am excited to join this panel and share my expertise and insights onto the futuristic regarding the OT security goal. And thank you.
Perfect. So it looks like we have the right people here. So I suggest to the audience you take advantage, send through any questions you might have. In the meantime, let's get the panel started. So we have a number of questions that we put together before. The first one is this: what capability or tool do you believe that will be critical for the future of industrial cybersecurity defense, and why? So Jatan, why don't you kick things off?
This is an interesting one. What I believe is, I guess we are into era of artificial intelligence and machine learning. I think we can rely morely onto AI and ML in developing baselines. I know OT is definitely a dynamic environment, and there have been processes which might be repetitive. So I guess what we can emphasize more onto is emphasizing on AI and ML, where we can create I would say a baselines of processes. So for that, if there might be any deviation for their processes, we can have an alarm trigger, or I would say alerts been triggered that either it would be a malfunction or whether it would be a deviation that someone is trying to get into an environment. It is difficult to challenge this because I guess we cannot rely on too wholly on AI, since we have to test the automated response of AI. But I guess it would be very interesting to know.
Wow. Yeah, excellent. And Nrusingha, do you have something to add there?
Yeah. So I believe OT security or security in the OT space is slowly catching up the enthusiasm and the heat that is already there and being strongly sustained in the IT security field. Now, since industries are waking up and strengthening in a mission to strengthen the OT cyber defense, I believe the fundamental and critical aspect, the first thing that they should be caring about. I think it's application control. It's deny by default and approve approve to allow. So which means something which an exe or a script which would not have been baselined earlier or have not been used by a OT system should be restricted until it is allowed. I think that's one tool or capability OT security, OT industry should bring in, the manufacturing plant should bring in. So good tools to name here would be Threat Lockers App Control and VMware's Carbon Black App Control. I found very useful and very fitting. The other thing is, I think since we have tools to garner the asset information of the assets that is there in my environment, I should use that information to, if I can bring in a tool which takes in this information and scans the darknet or the Shodan to understand whether any contextual content or conversation is going out there about any of my assets. If I get to know that, then I can take proactive action. So I think these two capabilities are one fundamental, one advanced, would be key for in OT cyber defense mission for a manufacturing plant.
That's very interesting. And it was a comment that flew past there. I talked about application whitelisting, I think is what you were talking about there. Ravindra, would you like to add anything to that?
So from my take, or maybe spending 6 years into now manufacturing OT security, operation resilience will become non-negotiable, and it's for every manufacturing firm across the globe. So let me explain. Operation resilience in manufacturing isn't about scoring high on maturity models. It's about whether your operations can survive an IT outage in today's world that doesn't even touch your OT, but it will cripple your ability to produce. Let me give you an example to this. I have come across many global organizations passing major cybersecurity audits with flying colors, be it ISO 27001, NIST CSF frameworks. It looks very bulletproof on paper, and later on we hear news they facing multi-day production outages and data breaches. So my question to the audience would be, or an takeaway to the audience would be, has your production line ever tested a production Active Directory failure with no IT support for 24 hours? If you guys haven't tested that, I would really ask you guys that this is kind of a learning for you, that get it tested. Until you do those kind of a recurring testings, then only you will understand that what's very critical on your shop floor and how you can protect those critical assets. Just to add on to that, Jonathan. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, and that we see with our client engagements as well, is the understanding that it's not, at some point, it's not about the OT, the IT, the whatever T it happens to be. It's about, can you continue to serve customers? Can you continue to work with your partners? Can you deliver the product? Can you ship the product? Can you bill for it, etc.? We see a lot of business interruption where it's not necessarily the OT that's impacted, but it's the impact on the company. And I think what we've seen over the years of doing this is that as you look further out, you see that it's about the company and the value that company brings to their customers, their shareholders, their partners. That's actually the risk to that value is what we are actually trying to address and protect. And often we get caught up in the technology, but again, Shiv mentioned that earlier. It's something that always comes second, sometimes third. So fantastic, great points, all of you. And definitely the role of AI is definitely something that's beating the door down, and something that we all have to figure out as we go as well. Which leads us on to the next question. The role of AI and machine learning. In particular in threat detection, I think we understand how it's useful in the back office and building procedures and things like that. But what about the future of threat detection, and particularly response? I think response in our environments is always a bit of a dirty word. We don't like automated responses in a lot of cases, but there's a lot of room to use AI and ML in threat detection and analysis. Nrusingha, what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's very interesting. The capabilities of AI. We are seeing that how AI is ramping up in its significance and presence all around us at this time. One key attribute of that I would like to focus on, which I particularly feel can be very much used, though it's called agentic AI. Now we know that GPT-4 can interpret PLC ladder logic and structured text. So with that, if of course there's no ready-made tool available right now, but yeah, if GPT-4, if an agentic AI can be built based on the known frameworks of agentic AI like LangChain and LangGraph, and I train the model with my host system information. So when I say host system information, considering my system is a PLC, SCADA, HMI based equipment, and I train the agentic AI with all the information of that system, and then tie the agentic AI to the vendor databases, to security portals, and then make the agentic AI do a real-time vulnerability watch over my OT system. So that way agentic AI can be helpful in bringing up the vulnerabilities in real time as patches expire, as OSs expire, as connectivity breaks, as some policy is breached, some practices is breached. So I see that agentic AI helping in this direction in giving out the alert at the right time and also recommending what probable actions can be taken to mitigate it. So this is one aspect of AI that I see helping us in the future.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great point as well. I think also the challenge when new technology comes in this example AI, and your example of Nrusingha is you're pulling a lot of very, very critical and valuable information into the AI. Then one of the new risks is that the AI itself becomes a target because it contains all that valuable information. It's kind of like the digital twins that we hear about, etc. Which is fine to go and use it. It has lots of value, but along with that, we need to understand that we introduce new risk, and along with that, we need a plan to mitigate that risk as well. So how do you protect the AI as a target? In the case of AI, I think we also need to make sure we protect the AI from itself, right? So the model poisoning and hallucinating things like that. But Jatan, you brought it up before. Do you have anything to add on that point?
I would just like to have, just add one thing. I take AI in a both ways. I would say a positive into a negative way, I guess, as well. Because, I guess if we emphasize more on AI, we can have, a more detailed anomaly detection. I would say enhanced anomaly detection into our process. That could be, a positive sign for us. But I'm scared regarding, the automation task, or I would say the automation reply that, that AI might take without having a human intervention as well. So it is definitely going to be an interesting, that how we emphasize on AI. So it would so like we may have to test the use cases that what could be the automated response from AI for any responses, or for example any task that it might notice for anomalies. So it would be definitely great to see. But I am liking in terms of leveraging AI in terms of my GRC part, because we have also seen AI being used into my GRC tool. For example, regarding the asset visibility tools that we currently have in market, they are also helping us in terms of audit as well. So for automation tasks in terms of reports, definitely AI would be very useful. But if we talk regarding, the actionable items for OT, definitely there would be a pause regarding that part.
Yeah,
Agreed.
a significant pause. And Ravindra, I guess how are you evolving your cybersecurity strategy to address those? There's a flip side. The bad actors have AI as well, right? And we've seen already some AI-enabled threats. How are you evolving your own program or procedures or strategy to counter the new sort of AI-based threats?
Yeah, so as my colleagues rightly said, both Nrusingha and Jonathan, most tech is dual use, and AI is no exception to that. I would say that it's again kind of a dual-edged sword, and which side of that you're properly using that. So let me put across four key things, or we can say four things that we are working on into our organization. We are advancing our SOC capabilities with cross-functional trainings, because these are the teams which are kind of defenders for us, who look after these threats on a day-to-day basis. So we are doing these cross-functional trainings with IT/OT teams so that they are aware what exactly is coming into our networks from an entire threat attack surface perspective. Second thing would be increased cybersecurity awareness. We all know that yes, cybersecurity awareness is the key to the kingdom, and until you have your people being aware to handle this kind of a day-to-day mails or we can say attacks that are facing in your organization, you need to improve that within your organization. So what we are focusing is that we do kind of a monthly phishing simulation activities with our employees based on these new emerging threats. We have also started something from this year kind of called as an customized trainings for individual departments. So maybe as we have seen across those attack surface, that few departments within an organization are mostly targeted, be it be finance department, be it be the supplier management. So these are the ones which are now being given customized trainings on what can be the attack areas, what are the kind of phishing mails that they are receiving, and what should be the kind of a defense mechanism that we already have put in place as an organization, and how they can use that. Third thing to that would be evaluating the new attack surface tools with our existing vendors. So as technology is advancing, we are also evaluating new tools with our existing vendors that can help us to have a complete view, and then to have those necessary defenses put in place. And last but not the least, evaluating also from an threat intelligence perspective, I believe, which is also clearly a key concern in today's environment across manufacturing. Though we already have few, we can say resources like OT manufacturing sec or OT ISEC. But yes, again, sector specific threat intel is something that is clearly missing today, as organizations are not that keen in sharing those information with the rest of the world. So these are kind of my four key takeaways. And an example to that, I would add from my perspective that our incident response plan is operation centric. It is not cybersecurity centric. So this is what I wanted to conclude out of this.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. It's a point that's come up more and more, I think, as these events have gone past, is how we are there to serve the operations as opposed to the other way around. And I think it's so important. A lot of the conversations that we have with stakeholders in client organizations, we often try and walk them back to say, how do you contribute to the value of the organization? Make sure they understand they're part of an organization, and it goes for someone on the plant floor, somebody in engineering, in IT, in OT cybersecurity as well, to make sure that we're all serving a greater goal. It's about getting the product to the customer. That's where the value is, and what's our role in that. And that also enables a common language. It means we can speak about how our contribution is contribute to that, or how do we support that. I think that goes along with what you said, is everything we do is orientated towards actually creating that value. And I think in particular, maybe what seems to me a little different about the OT cybersecurity role is that as people, again, we all come from different backgrounds and fall into this role. So it takes a bit of time to figure it out. But I think once you do, you realize that you are much more aligned with that value than maybe some IT people, because you can see the inner workings of how that value is created. And then you realize that sometimes cybersecurity is seen as the department of no, but in our case, we get swept up. It's like Nrusingha's waves there. We get swept up in this thing where we don't have a choice. We get swept up in new digital projects, and people want more and more data off the shop floor, and we can't hold back the tide. But it's much better if we're there from day one and we understand the value to the organization, and then our value is helping to do that more securely, more safely, and then the powers can make that decision. But I think that's definitely a theme that we see more and more, and I think it's something that the industrial, what we call the industrial CISO, or whoever owns the industrial cybersecurity, that's part of what they're sort of dealing with. And that sort of segues on to the next question, is that role of the industrial CISO and I know there's a few other titles that have been given, but it's essentially it's the top professional who has accountability for the industrial cybersecurity. They often report to the CISO or someone on the IT security team or enterprise team. Sometimes they report to operations or engineering, not often, but we have seen that. But how do you see that role? How has that evolved, and how will it continue to evolve, say, in the next 2 or 3 years? And maybe I don't know if you can share, but how does that work in the organization or organizations that you have seen yourself? Nrusingha, would you like to take that one?
Yeah. Honestly, industrial CISO is still a new term. The IT security is the IT security that we know is still governs the OT security implementations as well in the many organizations that I've seen. But with time, uh, si- since the industry has taken cognizance of the rising cyber threats to the manufacturing process, because the greatest value lies there. So I believe as organizations keep deliberating in getting aligned to the ISA 62443 and their industry specific standards, by and ensuring the manufacturing process stays aligned with the AI and tech evolution that's happening. The manufacturing process as they realize that the manufacturing process keeps account of the traction that the tech evolution is happening, and secures itself at every step by uh, by creating standards and procedures and practices aligned to the standards, and of course adopting the newer technologies that are out there, that are innovative in nature in rendering cyber defense. So creating this, so the individual who is responsible to create this ecosystem and then sustain this ecosystem with time, I think will make the the evolution of industrial CISO from the conventional structure that we have seen so far. So I think these practices and policies adhered to from time to time will make the CISO dedicated towards OT and probably named something else, but this is how the process is going to be for evolution of the industrial CISO.
Jonathan, you are on mute, I believe. Yeah. Jonathan, you are not audible.
That better?
Yep. Okay,
Yes.
you're back.
Apologies. Say technical issues abound. Apologies for that. I just, as I was talking to myself once again, it was this conversation about how, it was a great conversation. Nobody heard it, but how OT does the actual CISO need to be? When we talk about industrial CISO, we kind of refer to the top the top of the pile on the OT side and has that understanding. But obviously there's a CISO in these companies which that sometimes very often come from the enterprise side. So I mean, I guess the answer as always, it depends, but I think what's the key role that the OT cybersecurity lead or the industrial CISO or whatever the term is, their job is to understand and manage that risk and put that into both the CISO's overall enterprise cybersecurity restructuring and the enterprise cybersecurity, the enterprise risk as well. So anyway, Jatan, do you have sort of a take on that too?
I think, Jonathan, as we discussed regarding evaluation for next 3 years, so I would definitely agree to Nrusingha's point regarding that we still don't have a designated position for industrial CISO. So I guess currently looking to the scenario, I guess this is going to be a significant and I would say rapid evaluation to current CISO role for IT. The I would say the more important steps, or I would say justification would be that CISO would need to be a bridge between the current IT and OT team structure, because he might also need to shift the cultural transformation from OT security to IT security, unless we have a dedicated industrial CISO. So that is definitely going to be a pain point, and I would say in terms of rapid evaluation. Second thing is regarding to make a team under same page. So for example, we do see that there is integrated security operation center for IT and OT both. So definitely there is going to be I would say discussion, and I would say there would be a miscommunication there in terms of how to handle such events if there is no dedicated leadership team as well. So I guess this might take time, but we are definitely going to that way for having an industrial CISO.
Yeah, I think that sounds quite familiar, and some of the comments coming in as well. As I said, there are other terms here for Chief Operating Security Officer that works alongside the CISO to report to the CEO. So again, it really depends in the organization. The industrial CISO or the OT cyber lead or the COSO, I guess that's how you say it. It doesn't matter what it's called. The function is what's critical. And I think we're seeing that be strengthened and seeing the need for that in every organization in some form or another. It's just such a unique sort of nexus of both understanding the technology, where the business value is created, and then reporting to the overall enterprise cybersecurity risk strategy as well, which I think is not less important. Sometimes we also see ourselves in just this bubble of OT security, which is not helpful either. We need to understand how we connect and collaborate. And again, that sort of brings us now into that next area, which is how do you plan to address the ever increasing convergence, whether that's IT, OT, IoT, cloud, whatever else that happens to be 5G, 6G, etc. in the environment. And again, these are things we sort of looked at this in the next 12 months or the next 18 months, but they seem to be, it's constant evolution. If somebody wants to pull in more data or wants to connect something else, and particularly manufacturing, said before, we've sort of turned the corner saying, no, you can't do that, but let's have a look at how we do that safely and securely. And in particular, I think, from what I've seen, is the earlier on that we or you are involved in those conversations. So when someone's thinking about, well, what sort of digital next step can we take, that's where we need to be as well. Not patched on after the conversation's already had, and well, we're doing this. How do we secure it? Ravindra, what's your take on that?
Rightly pointed out, I believe the key tensions that you have across organizations. I will just like to put it into 6 clear strategies perspective for every organization that would be helpful. Workforce training and development, upskilling employees to handle the convergence of these technologies. So this is going to happen, and you need to upskill your own employees to handle this convergence. Regulatory compliance. I believe in today's world where a lot of regulations are coming, staying updated with industry regulations and standards, it's become very important for our organizations as well as the management to avoid any legal or financial repercussions. Third to the list, I would say enhanced security measures. It can be prioritizing your existing security. It may be aligned to the robust frameworks that we have today, NIST, CSF, or the other ones that have been readily available, IC 6443, and then aligning it to the zero trust architecture kind of a thing. I believe this is where the future now needs to go. It's nothing that as a zero trust says, nothing needs to be trusted now, and so this kind of an architecture needs to be deployed or adapted within organizations. Fourth, as you rightly pointed out, integration and interoperability, ensuring seamless communication between systems and devices through standardized protocols and middleware solutions. I believe that's where we need to, we as an architect or we as an IT/OT person needs to come into those kind of discussions where businesses are doing those kind of integrations. And the fourth one or the fifth one, I can say data management and analytics. We all know data is the new oil across the industries, and implementing effective data management strategies and advanced analytics to harness this increasing data generation. I believe that is also a key for every organization. Every organization needs to use the data that has been getting generated. And last but not the least, to the list is scalability and flexibility, leveraging cloud native solutions. So I'm not against adapting cloud, but yeah, because I can say it needs to be customized and tailored within an OT environment from an entire threat attack surface. You need to understand that, and then you can adopt this microservices architecture also. So this is kind of a short take from me where these 6 strategies can be taken by any organizations in a kind of a 1 year or 2 years kind of a roadmap, and then they can plan their various defenses to avoid these kind of threats.
Oh, that's pretty comprehensive. Did anyone want to add something there? No. Okay, so let's sort of take a sidestep and look at the people side of things. We touched on that earlier with the training and certifications in the opening panel, but in the opening keynote. But what's your longer term strategy, I guess, for cyber workforce development, and particularly across the OT environments? How, and I guess maybe the expanded question there is, do you buy or build OT cybersecurity people, and you bring them from the outside? Do you build them from the inside? How do you train them? How do you keep them once they're trained? They're like precious gems when you build them. How do you keep them involved, and how do you keep them with you and moving and etc.? So Nrusingha, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Sure. The field as it is by its very nature, my long-term strategy would be twofold. First is for one is hiring outsiders. Second is creating a program in-house and nudging the people who are existing towards this, and molding them or orienting them, as the right word is, towards fulfilling the fulfilling the rules in the OT security domain. So now when I look to hire, the easy task is to hire the people with the right recipe. So by the right recipe, I mean the mindset. So how do I know that? So the indicators are somebody who would have studied OT. So primarily it's a graduate in instrumentation or electronics. Second, somebody would have worked in any industry close to OT systems, either with PLC, DCS, or with sensors interfacing and all. Third is somebody who is aware about the IT infrastructure like server and networks, and how OT is integrated to that to scale up in value. Somebody who has worked in, for example, MES or LIMS or a serialization project where OT systems are integrated to server hosted applications. Alongside with that, if the candidate is aware that security has become an inherent critical attribute of such a setup, is a good to hire candidate from my view. That is one. Second, for in-house people to mold them and orient them towards the OT cybersecurity domain as a profession, I think a 45-day or a month-long training need to be curated. The training should have 4 parts. One is What is OT and how it is designed, developed, a little bit about that. Second is server and networks. What is client server architecture and what is peer-to-peer architecture? Think about a little bit about that. Third is the Purdue reference architecture, what it is and how it applies to this OT and IT that we learned, their integration. And fourth is how typically breaches happen. For example, what is somebody from database team would not know what is SQL injection, how it is leveraged to hack a OT system, for example. How is denial of service and man in the middle attacks are done. So there are open source tools available as well, just for a lab purpose, for a training purpose and this training should be undergone by the hired guys as well as the existing people we are trying to orient to OT security domain. I think this is the to me this appears to be the best strategy as of today, and I will use it to develop my workforce. And of course, people when they join the organization, they stay for a while, they go. So I would need the help of the organizational leadership as well to ensure that the value that we are creating by this training and by precise hiring stays sustained, and the employees derive value out of their employment as well. So this is how we can uh, develop the cyber workforce in the future.
Yeah, some great tips there. Jatan, would you like to add to that?
Sure. I guess Nrusingha rightly mentioned regarding cultivation of hybrid workforces and inclusion of cross training programs is for for example basic training for IT people to go through regarding what OT security is, how it is meant to be work. I guess this is definitely a common question, or I would say common is regarding a joint workshop, or I would say a joint tabletop exercises for IT and OT. So currently there might be, so we in industries we currently have separate IT tabletop exercises and separate OT tabletop exercises with management as well. So what I would like to emphasize more on is regarding having a joint workshop for both IT and OT tabletop exercises.
Yeah, great points there as well. Ravindra, do you have anything to add to that?
So I can proudly say that we as in Tetra Pak, we purely believe in developing in-house capabilities. So let me give an example to that, what we are doing right now. So mostly for our incident response and business continuity activities, we make sure that we include our shop floor people as well as from the other department part of those activities, so that they understand what are the kind of key concerns from a cybersecurity perspective as well as from an operation perspective, if that takes place, and how to handle that. So we truly believe in upskilling people with the necessary skills and certifications. And maybe as you rightly said out into the start, that it's kind of a build versus buy, right? And I believe that's again one of the strategy that we followed. Instead of buying something, we first rely on the in-house talent that we have and then developing their own skills, so that they also feel that they are being included into those kind of discussions, and that kind of an awareness has also been made across.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what we have seen that seems to have worked quite well is that some companies that we know have developed what they call a champions program, OT cybersecurity champions program. So obviously, in most companies, the OT cybersecurity runs pretty thin. There's a handful of people at most that have to cover a global organization in some places. So you need to rely on people who are not directly within the team. And what we've seen, again, it all depends on the organization and the structure, but it works really well if you go out and you find champions in the field, on the production lines, in the plants, offer them some training, come on board. That you'll find that people are quite responsive to this if they can actually also move forward and learn new things as well. And then they become part of your eyes and ears and your voice within those plants. And it gives you a much greater access. And again, that critical word that we haven't mentioned too much today, but I'm sure it's coming, that trust, that we need to do the job, right? Because when you work in that position, again, if it's the CISO or industrial CISO or OT lead, etc., it's a nexus point of all of these different people and different departments and different capabilities and also different worldviews. Everybody sort of looks at the same thing from a different point of view. So building trust is that incredibly important. I think the workforce development part is also that building trust, which is not just us educating ourselves, but us educating ourselves in what other people do and why and how they do it, and vice versa. If we can get some champions that come from their side, we don't have to go and beg and borrow and steal information. They will come and work with us. And you mentioned work around the round tables and putting the plans together, that type of thing. So all very, very good input. And on that point, what I'm going to do is just throw across to one of the questions that came in, a few questions. I'm going to try and squeeze a couple together. There's quite a few here, but one is, and again, I think it's probably very objective, but how do you identify the right IT person who can fit into OT? And I guess everyone's story is probably different. And the other part, which is not actually connected, but I thought I would connect them, with regards to tabletop exercises. How do you simulate an OT cybersecurity incident? So does anyone want to pick up one or either or both of those?
Maybe I can take that IT question that you
Yeah,
said.
sure.
So maybe as in the start I said, maybe when we do cross-functional trainings, and I believe this is really helpful that we have seen from the last 6 months that we have been doing with our SOC teams. So earlier our SOC teams were not that OT friendly, or they were not able to understand those OT alerts that have been generated on the ground. So what we did was that we did a kind of an 2 workshops with the OT teams coming into those workshops and then explaining those shop floor things to these IT people, specifically to the SOC team who used to handle or go through those alerts on a day-to-day basis. I believe this is how the collaboration has really made an worth of investing into those workshops. That now these IT people are also clearly understanding yes what alerts really matters to identify those false positives, and then who are the teams within OT, because we again have different shop floors for we can say teams across the regions, right? So they know the key persons now from a point of contact perspective, the who should be contacted and how that can be taken forward. So that has really helped us into our current organization.
Okay, fantastic. And do you guys want to add anything to that?
The right IT guy who can be into OT. Am I right? Is that the question, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it's the passion that's the differentiator.
Mhm.
An IT guy who is curious on security aspect and knows the importance of OT, importance in terms of value and how important it is to protect it. Even if you protect IT, but OT might go haywire if it's untouched. So I think the person who is aware about security and how important OT is and has done a little bit of groundwork about standards and how they can be protected is a little bit of creative and has that hunger. I think that he's the guy from IT who can be brought into OT security.
Yeah, I think like you said, that hunger and the curiosity is what drives people. And then if they have that hunger to learn and have an open mind, that's what's gonna turn them into the right people for OT cybersecurity. So absolutely. Here's one around compliance. So how are you preparing the shift, if you are preparing to shift towards this concept of continuous compliance, right? So instead of doing compliance exercise once a year, for example, shifting towards continuous compliance and audit readiness. I think maybe Jatan, what you said also about AI maybe somehow fits into that. Do you want to respond to that one?
Sure, Jonathan. So, as I was stating regarding, the usage of AI in terms of our, the CTD tool that we have currently implementing, or I would say the visibility tools that we have implemented, those also provides a few modules in terms of, compliance and audit trails. So what I would like to emphasize more and, more into it is like, which we should shift from the audit preparations to daily operations. And what I meant here is, in terms, we should not rely onto the audit for, year-long audit for, that we would prepare after after when it comes, but it should be a daily operation in terms of checking the devices GRC, what are the devices, what are the end of lives, what are the audit trails, what is the device life cycle, how we are prepared. For example, the password change policies in OT, that we know this is not very constant, and the change of password using I would say default credentials. So I guess in terms of relying on to audit preparations, it would be better that we can shift into daily operations, and we can definitely leverage into AI, as I mentioned, onto the tools that this gives us a few reports that that how our systems have been working.
Yeah, it seems quite detached today to say go and do compliance once a year or once every 2 years with it just feels like a lifetime in our environments. It definitely an area where AI can help collect the information and make sort of adjustments in real time to say, okay, what's changed. And I guess that sort of leads us also into the compliance, the regulatory environment. Now we're talking about APAC, which is a huge, the largest region pretty much that we've tackled so far. I think also in terms of breadth of maturity, and where people are, but also what level of maturity and the level of maturity both on the industrial side, but cybersecurity as well. But we're definitely starting to see in many of the countries in the region expectations both from government and regulators, but also from customers. The supply chain, we're all suppliers in a very, very long supply chain. Mostly in the middle of that somewhere. So we have expectations of our suppliers, and our customers have expectations of us with regards to meeting regulatory standards for cybersecurity. How is that shaping, or has it started to shape your sort of longer term planning? I guess it touches on things like security by design, or what we expect from our suppliers, and then what we're expected to do as suppliers. Ravindra, is that something you can take a stab at?
Yeah, maybe. Thanks for adding that. Maybe as I said, regulations and across the regions, or again being in global organization, regulation is something key for every organization, because it clearly has a legal and financial repercussions. And we've been focused currently specifically on the European region right now, because major of our regulations that we see are been coming up across this region. Specifically, if I want to talk about, it's NIS2, Cyber Resilience Act, EU AI Act, EU Machinery Act, or EU Data Act. So this particular regulations, it has a clear focus on cybersecurity, which would have a direct or indirect impact across our businesses. So making sure necessary defenses and actionable items in kind of an strategy are put in place to address this kind of regulation. So this is what we as an organization have already started working on, to make sure that we also stay ahead of these regulations, and all those necessary defenses are put in place.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, we were talking about APAC region, and then you mentioned Europe. It just goes to show that a lot of companies here are multinationals. So it's not just across the region, but across the globe that you need to deal with these emerging regulations. And some of them are not always clear, or the details or the fine details are left up to someone to figure out, which is always a challenge. And then of course your boss or your C-level will come say, hey, are we good here? Are we in compliance? And You're like, I think so. But things just move too quickly for the compliance cases to catch. I think in most cases, if we are doing our job correctly, and looking at the risk and trying to identify the risk and putting in decisions to do we want to address, mitigate, transfer risk, etc. That's more than half the job, and it will meet definitely the minimum requirements. But again, people have different ideas when it comes to regulations and compliance as well. So I think with that, what I will do is thank the panelists. It's been an amazing panel. Really, really appreciate. Some technical difficulties, both on my side and in and around, but it was an amazing discussion. Nrusingha, I still need to find out where your background is, because that will be my next event will be held there. But thank you all very much. Really appreciate great insights. Amazing. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your experience with us.